The following video, along with all the ones linked in the description below and in the playlist referenced, is a small fraction of the documented crimes that are perpetrated by evil scumbags in this country upon innocent children. How these Nazi bastards avoid being cut down in a hail of bullets is beyond me. If this has become a country where we don't have the balls to look them in the eye and empty the clip, then this society isn't worth a shit.
We weren't going to have that.
Foster families that are not related to the child get anywhere from $500 to $900 a month per child. And currently, the state gives kinship foster families just $75 a month per child, while some families don't get a dime because there simply isn't enough funding.
Legislation like
Sir, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you please state and spell your full name?
Karen Wagner, Carynwagner.
Where are you currently employed?
Department of Child Safety?
That's the state of Arizona.
Yes.
How long cleared up? Am I correct that, at least with respect to your understanding as a supervisor within the agency, there are no circumstances under which one of your investigators would ever need to get a warrant to remove a child from the custody of its parents?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so I'm correct in that statement.
That we do not obtain a warrant.
Can I have the question reread, please?
This is the Will Kanishi Show, in search for truth and justice, with yours truly, Will Kanishi. And to cover the three snippets that you saw, number one, the state of Arizona does not give the same money to family members that take children in under the foster care system to discourage them from taking their own family members. The second snip that you saw was of Ms. Wagner, who worked for Arizona CPS as a caseworker, and she comes right out and says they don't even use court papers to take children out of their homes. Which brings us to some of these snippets I have here, which shows where the state of Arizona in 1 year, where they had 19,000 children in the foster care system, they brought in over $1.2 billion to the state treasury. I cover that in Arizona 1. Then we'll talk, which I had mentioned in Arizona 1 but did not get to, about the blacklist and how they go about putting people on the blacklist, then come take their kids, and also about the $64,000 that one child brings into the state of Arizona every year being on in the foster care system. The law where they can take children out of the home without having any type of paperwork from the courts. The next one would be where after a year, if a parent is dubbed to be hooked on drugs, they completely take away the parental rights and keep the child in the foster care system until someone either adopts them or they age out to the age of 18. This justifies in the year 2016, when Ms. Wagner was talking, the 5,669 children that the state of Arizona took in the 6-month period. That was one every 46 minutes for a solid 6 months, folks. And guess what? The head of the CPS foster care organization out in Arizona, guess what? He got fired. We got a lot more. So like I said, it's not just hot, but it is steaming hot out there of corruption in the state of Arizona. So hang on, because we got a lot to show you. I want to thank each and every one of you for your support and the comments that you've been leaving below. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. So here we are. And even though I have a lot of articles to show you and videos to show you, I want to set this whole thing up because I need to establish the fact of how they go about using their flim-flam system and then using the laws with this flim-flam system and what some of the major laws they have on the books out there in Arizona to get these tens of thousands of children into the foster care system. Then I'm going to show you some video, one where they dubbed a young mother who was taking medication for cancer, but they dubbed her as being a drug addict and took her child away. I'm going to show you another one, even though it was in another state, where they walked in and tried to take someone's child without having a signed court order. And then there's going to be a third video out here I'm going to put in for you where they are, where it was in the state of Ohio, where they have this same blacklist, and I will get into the blacklist out in Arizona and what they do, because that's one of the laws that they have to take the kids away, and how she got flim-flammed out in Arizona, out in Ohio, and they don't even take those steps in Arizona. You're basically dubbed a unfit parent. Then they tell you about it as they're taking your kids away. So the video that I'm going to show you right now is of Ms. Wagner. She is to set this up, she is a social service, CPS, foster care caseworker, and she is actually in a court hearing being asked questions. I'm going to go ahead and play her name again. I'm going to play the snippet where you've already saw where they don't take warrants. Then I'm going to go down and I'm going to play a couple more that's going to blow your mind, as far as she doesn't even know exculpatory evidence is, what it means, was never trained on exculpatory evidence. And if you don't know what exculpatory evidence is, that is evidence that proves that you are innocent of any accusations or charges. She doesn't even have any idea what that term means. And when they ask her the question, can you guarantee that all the information that they put in these shim-sham reports, and I'll explain what you're getting ready to see. What the social service caseworker does is they take their case notes in this other form called the CRM. That CRM in the case notes are supposed to be one and the same. There's not supposed to be any difference. When they fill that report out, they send it to the Attorney General's office, which is an attorney that looks at it and says, okay, you have put 5 reasons why a child should be taken out of a home. I'm going to approve reasons 1 and 2, but you can't use reasons 3, 4, and 5. Once the attorney in the Attorney General's office signs off on the report, you would think that's when the report gets sent to the courts. No, it gets sent back to the caseworker that filled out the original report that put the 5 things on where 3 was taken off. Well, guess what? They now have an opportunity to put those 3 things back on that report and more things. They could put 6, 7, and 8 on, not approved by the Attorney General's office. And that's the report that gets sent over to the courts. And that's the evidence that's used against the parents to take the children out of the house. That would be the same thing as a law enforcement officer having 5 things that he is charging you, having 5 pieces of evidence where he charges you with a crime, goes to the Commonwealth attorney or the prosecutor and says, okay, here are the 5 pieces of evidence that I have to justify this charge against this individual. And the prosecutor turns around and says, well, no, you can only use one evidence, pieces 1 and 2, you can't use 3, 4, and 5, and then gives him the warrant back, and then goes over and puts 3, 4, 5 on, and maybe adds 6, 7, and 8 on, and then that's where he gets the warrant, and that's the evidence that he uses to prosecute someone in a court of law, even though, quote unquote, there was a signature on some document by the prosecutor that everything was approved, and it wasn't. That's the same process that they're doing over in Arizona through the Department of Social Services, CPS, foster care, to get kids out of houses. But before we get to Mrs. Wagner, there's another video, 2 videos I'm going to show you. I'm not 100% sure this was in Arizona, but I just want you to understand this. I'm just using Arizona as an example. This type of thing goes on all over the country, folks. This lady was convicted and put in jail for 5 years for lying on her CPS reports, number 1. Then they turned around and had a lawyer go into a tribunal on her behalf and try to establish the fact that it was okay to lie and commit perjury in a court of law to have children taken out of their home. That right there is going to blow your mind. Then when you see that, then you'll see Ms. Wagner. Then you'll see the videos that I've just mentioned about the reporting they have, about not using the warrant system, which the warrant system, in my opinion, is also non-constitutional, and I'll get into that a little bit more. And she has no idea what exculpatory evidence to prove someone's innocence.
they can get caught for that.
Jerry Murphy pleaded guilty to falsifying documents, admitting she filed paperwork filled with untruths about investigations involving children. Among the more disturbing cases listed in her indictment, the sexual abuse of a 3-year-old by their biological father. 5 years and taken into custody.
5 years, no parole, seems about right for defamation, slander, and attempted child abduction. Getting caught for this could be a problem for the CPS. But to be caught, this would need to go to the Supreme Court. But unfortunately, the CPS target low-income earning families, and they can't necessarily afford a lawyer. But fortunately, somebody has taken them to court before. Hardwick versus Rican. The panel affirmed the district's...
What's not been clearly established in the year 2000 when this removal occurred was the idea that the right to be free from deliberately fabricated evidence in civil child abuse proceedings that result in the deprivation of a protected liberty interest, the same liberty interest that's at issue.
But it's not the same liberty interest because this was a parental liberty interest.
It's a biological versus foster parent.
That's huge. That's gigantic in terms of what somebody could appreciate and understand. How in the world could a person in the position of, we have to take the facts as they're pleaded in the light most favorable, so, we're not trying the case. But how could a person in the shoes of your clients possibly believe that it was appropriate to use perjury and false evidence in order to impair somebody's liberty interest in the continued care, custody, and control of that person's children? How could they possibly not be on notice that you can't do that?
I understand the...
How could that possibly be?
I understand the argument that it seems to be common sense and our ethical...
It's more than common sense. It's statutes that prohibit perjury and submission of false evidence in court cases.
State statutes.
Are you telling me that a person in your client's shoes couldn't understand you can't commit perjury in a court proceeding in order to take somebody's children away?
Of course not, Your Honor.
Of course not.
Then isn't the case over then?
And the case is over.
Court reports. Isn't it also critically important that the information contained in the CSRA and the case notes, both of those, is truthful, honest, accurate, and complete?
I can't answer that whole question.
So it's okay in your career with the agency. Have you ever had a training, whether it was court training or some other subsequent training, where the subject matter covered the constitutional rights that run between parents and children, if any?
I don't recall. The petition is drafted, it goes to the AG reviews it, adds the allegations to it, comes back, the case manager reads it, corrects it if necessary. If there are no changes needed, then it is signed with a verification with an affidavit.
You said the case manager reads it and corrects it? Is that the same person as the investigator?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the investigator who's been assigned the case reads it, reviews it, if changes or corrections are needed, makes those changes and corrections, then signs the affidavit?
Yes.
Okay. Then the same SRA and the case notes, taking them as a whole, we should see complete information.
As long as it was available to the investigator.
At that time.
At that time.
Right. Okay. Have you ever heard the term exculpatory information?
Yes.
In what context?
Court.
In the context of your training regarding court reports?
I'm not sure it was in regards to specifically a court report.
Okay. In the context of your training, whether it be core training or any training that you've had with the agency, have you received any training about any obligations that you may have in relation to exculpatory evidence or exculpatory information.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Can you define exculpatory?
Oh, let me ask, do you know, as you sit here today, what the word exculpatory means?
I can't say that I do, for sure.
Okay.
So the first video that you saw, the first two, was a woman being convicted of forging her documentation and having children taken out of foster care, taken out of their home, put into foster care. Now that case was not in Arizona, but I use that as an example because once again, I'm using Arizona as an example of what goes on all throughout the country. The second set of videos that you saw was where a case had been brought up in California where the attorney was trying to defend the fact that a person had working for the foster care system had the right to go in and lie and commit perjury in a court to get children taken out of the household. And obviously the judge saw through that. And then the last set of videos you saw was Mrs. Wagner out in Arizona. And I'll just recap. She has no training, never was received any training under constitutional law that binds children and parents together, establishes the fact that when you go in and you take a child away from a parent without legal papers from the court, you are violating their constitutional rights. Then it goes on and she cannot verify the fact that information that is put in these documents are true and accurate. Then it goes on to describe how the flim-flam sham process that they have with a social service caseworker, once they get the signed, approved document back, can alter that document and present that to the judge to have a child taken out of a home. And finally, the last one was she has no idea what exculpatory evidence is. They do not in Arizona even mention the fact of putting information into these reports that would prove these people innocent of the charges that they've been charged with as far as being unfit parents. Now, the next set or videos I put out or video I put out is going to deal with where social service in Arizona only pays biological relatives of children in foster care $75 a month. Whereas if you are a total stranger and you take a child in, you get a whole $650 a month. So this is their way of discouraging relatives from taking their own family members in through the foster care system because they want to be able to put them in a stranger's home where they know that they can manipulate the situation. Number one, the child will stay in foster care longer. Number two, number three, the biological relatives of a foster care child is going to do everything they can to get them back to their parents, which a foster care household that are strangers will not do that. So once again, here's another little tweak that they've put to their system to discourage family members from taking their own family members in the foster care system.
We weren't going to have that.
Foster families that are not related to the child get anywhere from $500 to $900 a month per child. And currently, the state gives kinship foster families just $75 a month per child, while some families don't get a dime because there simply isn't enough funding.
Legislation like
So the snippet that you see here talks about the blacklist. There's a central registry out in Arizona. And let me tell you how it works, because I couldn't find a video of it actually somebody getting screwed on the blacklist in Arizona, but I'm going to show you a video of the similar same thing happening to a lady in Ohio. So what happens in Arizona? What they do is they single out a parent, then they hold this secret meeting that the parent has no idea that this meeting is being taken place. Evidence is presented of this person supposedly being an unfit parent. Once it's ruled, they are now put on this central registry blacklist. Currently, there was over 81,000 parents out in Arizona that are on the central registry blacklist for that state. Now that a person has been put on the blacklist, had no idea that hearing was even being held, they then get a piece of paper that says, hey, you've been put on our blacklist, dubbing you as an unfit parent. Now, if you'd like, you can appeal our decision and come in at that point in time and bring in your evidence to prove where we are wrong. So pretty much these people are getting not accused, but they're actually being convicted of being a bad parent, and they're not even able to defend themselves when doing so. The other kickback is that soon as a person is put on a blacklist, social services will go up, knock on their door, hold up a piece of paper and say, oh, by the way, this morning you were put on the Central Registry blacklist along with the other 81,000 parents that we have on there, and we're taking your children. And they literally walk in, blindsiding the parents, and take the children out of the household and immediately put them into the foster care program. That's how Arizona works. Only 4% of the people that have been put on this blacklist have ever been taken off, and you stay on it for 25 years. So now the video you're going to see is the same similar situation in Ohio. They have a blacklist too. Now this lady, she had a hearing. However, she wasn't notified about the hearing until 15 days after the hearing had taken place, and she had already been put on the blacklist. The kicker was she was on the blacklist 15 days later, and they said that they had sent her certified mail a notification of the hearing. She asked for the proof that they had gone down to the post office, filled out the form that was registered or certified mail, and they could not prove it because guess what? They never sent the notification to her that the hearing was ever being taken place, and she didn't get any kind of notification that anything had happened and that she was put on the blacklist in Ohio until 15 days later. So that's how the social services work in various states. They have one like that down in Texas. Dave over at Inglorious Patriots and I were interviewing a lady from down in Texas. They literally, as she was having her baby, as soon as they wrapped it up, they took her baby from the hospital and put it into foster care because she was on the blacklist. And the kicker was she had already gone to court, and the jury ruled for her to be off that list, and the judge overruled the jury and kept her on so they could take her baby.
Okay, here's the June 20th paperwork that I never was notified of any hearing, but they're saying that I was notified, but I was not. And then there is the matter that came before the court administratively. Nobody, I don't know. I knew about the June 20th court date on August 4th, but I've never heard of what even, I don't even know what that means administratively. Is that legal? Can you propose a change to my children's anything without notifying me, without me being present? I do not know what the hell that even is. And they're saying that I was served, and I was not. Proof of service, because I guarantee on anything and everything that I have never been served. So where do I get proof of service? Because nobody can seem to answer that question either. It's just a big, I don't know. Or they.
Well, folks, I've come across so much information. I'm going to have to turn this into a 3-part episode here. So therefore, that's all I have for Arizona Part 2. Arizona Part 3 is even going to be more information about the corruption that goes on in the CPS foster care system. Some of it I will be using out in Arizona. Others I'll be using examples in other states. But you need to stay tuned because there's going to be more. So that's all we have for the day. I want to thank you so much for taking your time to watch my show. This has been In the Search for Truth and Justice with yours truly, Will Kanishi, on The Will Kanishi Show.
So you can feel the sound.
Please subscribe to our backup channels, Net4Truth USA 2 Patriot channel, BitChute.com/net4Truth USA, and drop.space /@Net4Truth USA. We fly so close to the target, we are on our 5th fighter jet. We will be relentless and persistent until the enemies of freedom are defeated. You can support this channel by using the links in the description, but for a $100 donation, I will personally send you a autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears, Also, visit my bookstore at lulu.com/net4truth USA. If you are viewing this video on BitChute, you can use the links in the description to support us, or simply click the green $ dot on our video to support this channel. Thank you. Links are in the description section.